Okay. I must say the experience of sitting in front of a camera is something new to me. So first of all, shalom aleichem to all previous students, alumni. I feel honored and privileged to be able to speak to you again. And what I chose today was to learn something on Chanukah. It's a famous mimer. Maybe some of you learned it with us in here in Machon Alta. It's a famous mimer from the Rabbi Rashab, Tanu Rabbanim Ner Chanukah. It's a classic that's learned by most all the Bachrim at a particular time in their history and their time in the yeshiva. We're going to learn just really the finale of the Mimer, which talks about Hanukkah. And the Rebbe introduces the idea or the question, why is it that the mitzvah of lighting the candles of Hanukkah, which is to commemorate the menorah that was in the Beis Hamikdash, why is it lit outside the house? Right? We say our Chabad minhag is a little different, and most minhagim in Chutz La'aretz is different. In Eretz Israel, it's already changed to the original Takana in the time of the Chazal, in the time of the Gemara, where everybody put their candles outside the house. And when did they light it? As we also do it today. We light it once it gets dark. Right? Once the sun sets or the stars come out, then the mitzvah of lighting candles start. And if we're commemorating the menorah of the Mishkan, of the Beis Hamikdash, that was something that was lit in the afternoon. It was lit inside the Beis Hamikdash. So why the change? What's the difference between the two things? So the Rebbe goes into this before he comes to the conclusion to explain the answer. Of course, like all Maimorim, there's a preface to the question. An explanation of two forms, two types, two ways of serving a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Classically, it's the difference between the avodah of the Beinoni and the Tzaddik. The Beinoni has that struggle. A person works on themselves. There are issues that you have to overcome. There's challenges throughout the day, challenges throughout your life, and there's a battle. There's a fight going on. As opposed to the tzaddik turns a light on, his neshama shines through, and the other side, the darkness in him, just dissipates, and for him it's a smooth ride through life, and he just travels from one level to another in kedusha. Whereas the Beinoni, it's a different type of battle. Now, if we were to compare the types of avoda, when a person's in the mushal of a battle between people, that when you're fighting and you're warring one with the other, so if you're stronger and you're persistent and energetic, so you're going to win the battle. But your opponent can come up and challenge the person once again. But if the war is made not through the challenge of tit for tat, but so to speak, the lights are turned on, your opponent is so overwhelmed by your greatness, your strength, he waves the white flag 1, 2, 3, and the battle is over. And the other side, because that the other person submits completely. Rabbi wants to compare that not just to the difference between the tzaddik and the Beinoni, but in our lives. He compares it to the personal war or the battlegrounds in tefillah, in davening. The difference between the tefillah of a weekday as opposed to Shabbat. That during the week, everybody is rushing out to go to work, has chores, family issues to deal with. Kids have to get out. If you're in the situation where you have your own children, and if you're trying to rush to get to the office, there are all kinds of challenges that our minds have to deal with in the time of tefillah, to focus and to concentrate on what we're saying and what we're doing in tefillah, to communicate and to connect to Hashem. But when it comes, that's the battle, so to speak, likened to the Beinoni, is compared to the avoda of the individual in the tit for tat working and challenges on everyday life. But then there's the avoda, the tefillah of Shabbat. Shabbat ba menucha. It's a different communication with Hashem. Issues are not the same issues. There's a certain serenity when it comes to Shabbat. The Chazal say a person who one who works on Erev Shabbat, he'll eat on Shabbat. He prepares on Erev Shabbat, he'll have what to eat on Shabbat. The spiritual meaning in that, the simple idea is if you don't go shopping and you cook and prepare, you're not going to have what to eat. But the counterpart in the Avodas Adam is a different idea altogether. That a person who challenges his distractions in his life and overcomes them throughout the weekday, and that's called the avodas of birurim, when you elevate the godly sparks, when you're in your family life and you're doing things l'shem shamayim, and you're in your job and working on your day-to-day lives, and you add in an element of kiruv levavot, you add a little mifsoyim, avos Yisrael, you take off time for learning and davening. So that's the avodah of birurim. That's the work that we're challenged throughout the weekday. That's if you're working on Erev Shabbat. Then on Shabbat comes the menucha, comes the light and the serenity of Shabbat. It says that on Shabbat, one of the malachot, we learned in halacha class, one of the malachot is borer. Borer is not allowed to separate. So the pinimius of that malacha in the avodas nefesh is that a person, the separating good from bad, holiness from non-holiness, taking out the godly sparks, that avoda doesn't apply on Shabbat. Shabbat is all holiness. There isn't this idea of borer. The weekdays, there's the challenge of bringing out the godly sparks. But on Shabbat, that doesn't exist. Why? Because Shabbat, the lights are on. There's a special connection that Hashem gives with us. The whole world is elevated to a whole different level. That when the lights are on, again the nefesh bahamis behaves better. The klipa, so to speak, the evil, the eye moves out. So that's what it means. That if also it says the halacha is if a person doesn't know what day of the week he wakes up on a desert island and he doesn't know what day of the week it is. So how do you know when should he refrain from his work activities and celebrate Shabbat? What day? He doesn't know what day it is. So the halacha is he should count right from this moment, count 6 days, according to one opinion anyway, count 6 days and then come Shabbat. Meaning that if you work and you challenge your nefesh bahamit throughout the 6 days, then comes Shabbat, comes this special connection that a person has with the Kodesh Baruch Hu on the day of Shabbat. And that's what happens to us all the time when it comes to Shabbat. So that he says, well, that was a challenge of Chanukah. Comes the Greeks, and they did a very strange thing. In their quest to conquer the Jewish people, they burst into the Beis Hamikdash, into the holies and holy of holies, and instead of looting and stealing all the gold and silver, which was just worth millions, and instead of as a prelude and to weaken the Jewish people, to stop the water supply and the food supply, what do they do? What was their big their mifsa, their battle plan? Was they came into the Beis Hamikdash and they broke the seals of the flasks of oil. Can you imagine all these warriors with armors and swords coming in and just breaking seals, breaking flasks of oil to contaminate the oil? That's what's recorded in history. What did the Greeks do? To challenge the Jewish people, contaminate the oil. Strange phenomenon. The idea is that the challenge was not that the Greeks weren't after our bodies. They weren't interested in destroying the Jewish people. They were more interested in challenging the Jews as a religion. They wanted to take God out of the picture. As we say in the Tefillah, the addition in Shmoneh Esrei, also in Birchos Hamazon, that we say during the 8 days of Chanukah, Lashkichem Torasecha le'avira michukei ritzonecha. They wanted to cause that the Jewish people should not forget Torah, but it's Torah Secha, not to forget about mitzvahs, but to forget that it's mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that there's something divine, there's something holy, there's something godly in our behavior. That was what they couldn't handle. Culture is okay. Be a Jew. You can do that. Be proud that you're a Jew. It's also okay. Have chicken soup Friday night, give money to the Jewish causes, sing Jewish songs, give money to Israel, come and do all things what Jews do. But leave Hashem out of the picture. That was the idea of contaminating the oils. The oil represents, in Chassidus, oil represents Chochma shebenefesh, the wisdom or the higher part of the nefesh, which is called Chochma shebenefesh, which is that quality of submitting yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, humbling yourself before Hashem. That they didn't want. That they wanted to contaminate. What's Chochma of Klipa? There's nothing but me. I'm the center of the world. What I want, that's what's important. And that's it. And that's what they wanted to contaminate. They wanted to take Hashem, the idea of bitul, the idea of self-nullification, the idea of standing humbly in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and listening to the Torah, his Torah, and to his mitzvot, to keep the Torah because he commanded, that they couldn't handle. Says that and why was that so severe? I mean, the obvious thing is taking Hashem out of the picture is obviously severe. But the contamination of a person's mind is the Rabbi Rashab is quoting now from Tanya. I think it's chapter Ches in Tanya, where the Rebbe goes into the difference between a person who kind of goes off the track and falls into his own ta'avot, meaning he can't control himself, whether it be in eating or other issues in his life, that he's drawn after his heart, whatever he wants, that's what he wants to do, and that's what he does, whether it's good or for bad. He's not in control. He's not in control on the level of what's called midot, his emotions. And if his emotions are not in play, are off track, so then his actions are also going in the wrong direction. But the Rebbe says in Tanya, that's not the end of the world. Because if your mind is straight, if your mind is on track, there's iskafia, there's control, mind rules over your heart, right? Moach Shaltei Lev, which is the motto of Chabadniks, that we can be in control. Since your mind is okay, you can control what's going on in the rest of you. But when your mind is out to lunch, your mind is contaminating. What contaminated is that's what the Greeks wanted to do: contaminate the wisdom of the Jews, contaminate the mind. So if the mind, which is the king over us, it's the main faculty which controls the rest of us, our emotions and our thought, speech, and action. So if that's contaminating, so then it's a very tough situation. That's, again, parenthetically, why it's always frowned upon learning different philosophies, different religions, just out of curiosity. Because when your mind gets involved in klipa, when your mind is involved in negative issues of different philosophies, different religions, so even if it's just, out of curiosity, it affects the person's mind. When you're in university, you're learning a trade, you're learning medicine, you're learning economics, you're learning whatever you're studying. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when a person learns things that its source is in klipa. That's a dangerous situation. And that was a Greek philosophy. Greek philosophy was we have to take out Hashem, take out spirituality, purity and impurity. That's not in our dictionary. We have to take you away. Comes a Hashmonaim, and they say, look, that's not it. We start the revolution against all odds, right? We say in the tefillah, the many conquer the weak, conquer the mighty, the strong, and the few, the many. And against all odds, they stood in Mesiras Nefesh to fight the Greeks. That devotion and that Mesiras Nefesh elicited a response from Hashem, so to speak. The light was turned on.